Today we're going to go over basic MIDI and audio editing. So I'm going to show you, these are some ways that we can look through our loops. We can find them through different genre descriptors, instruments. So here's something that we might want to use for our project today. Perfect. Let's try this one. Alright, so retro cinema strings. Okay. I'm going to make the window a little bit bigger. So this is what we call non-destructive editing. When you go to the bottom of the region, you can see how there's a little symbol that allows us to change the size and the starting and ending points of our file. You can also go to your editor view and do the same thing with a little bit bigger resolution, and you see that the audio is still there. It didn't go anywhere. This is a really easy way to edit, and we can also loop this. If you go to the top of your file, you'll see there's a little cue with a bracket. It tells you that you're going to loop this point, and it references the original audio, so once you edit it, it will change all the other loops. It's a very handy tool. Okay. And there's my original audio. Didn't go anywhere. There's lots of tools in the toolbar. You can go through these yourself. I'm just going to show you a few. Whenever you hit the command button, it becomes the right click, or the second tool. You can do things like snip your audio using the scissor tool. And again, it's non-destructive, so it just creates another region where you snipped it. Very handy. And you can loop any region you want. So now here's my edited loop. Okay, so when you go to the editor, you see there's a file view. This is the actual file on the disk. It shows you everything that's actually from the original file. So if you try to go in and cut it, you can't. It's saying you cannot edit this file, and it tells you because it's read-only. Because Logic owns this file, you can't touch it. That's what we call destructive editing. And if you want to do destructive editing, you either have to make a copy. I'm going to get rid of this. Or you just have to bring in your own audio. Okay, so we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to show you more tools. Here's the fade tool. If you right click using the second tool, or command click, you can add fades to your tracks. Just be careful. If you do this too much, Logic can sometimes get overloaded. So you may not always want to be using fades unless you absolutely have to, but you see it creates a customized fade in. You can change the shape and the point at which it starts and ends. So it fades in nicely, and then it can fade out really abruptly. Okay. So now I'm going to drag in my original audio. This is just a little boing fun. Okay, so now we can go to the original file, and because I own this file, meaning I own it on my disk, I can go ahead and cut it. And it says warning, this will be permanently deleted from the file. So beware, only do that if that's what you want to do. In general, don't use this option. I would very much say I never use this option, so I wouldn't use it unless you really know why. Instead, use non-destructive editing. Okay, let's find a MIDI loop. Let's try something else. It's always fun to navigate through the loops. There's thousands of them. So we're going to try That works. Okay, drag it to a new track. And let's go ahead and show you the loop option. So you can loop MIDI files as well. You can edit them the exact same way as you edited the audio files using non-destructive editing. Or you can go into the editor window and go to the piano roll and literally move individual notes, change their lengths, change their positions, change one note at a time, multiple notes at a time, click and drag, move it along the timeline. It's very simple to do this. You can do this for a bunch of notes or just a single note. And then there's the tools for this window as well. So when I use the pencil tool, it inputs notes. And then you can edit each note individually. You can also erase notes quickly without having to click and delete, click and delete. You just use the eraser tool. The mute tool is nice. You can just try it listening to some notes turned off without having to do anything fancy. And then the velocity tool allows you to change the velocity of each note, which is like the volume of the note. And you can do it for a group of notes. So I'm going to turn all the notes down really, really low. And this can give it a different timbre if it's if the synthesizer has it that way. So there's the score view. If you're prone to musical notation, and here's the step editor view, which allows you to edit each event for each note. Alright. So on the MIDI window, you can change the synthesizer by clicking on that little part of the blue icon, and you change it to a different synthesizer and it opens it up for you. So there's the synthesizer that you're using now, and it changes everything accordingly, and you can go ahead and start with a preset. Okay. Then you can adjust the various knobs depending on your preference. So you may want to adjust certain things, the tuning or the very overall attributes of the oscillators or filters. Some of these things you should be familiar with from our class. Here's an effect. Okay, and so the point is that once you like what you've done, you can save it as a preset and give it a unique name. And it's going to be there on your computer until you either update Logic or update your computer. And you can go right back to where you started, or you can go back to your synth patch and you can kind of compare things depending on your preference. Okay, so we'll close this window. And show you audio effects. So audio effects exist on all tracks as well, even MIDI tracks. And they have all sorts of options that you can choose from. I do recommend you just try several of these out and see what they do, and start with a preset. Anything that you might have added will show up under audio units. So if you've downloaded some things or bought some things, that's where they'll show up in Logic. So let's just add something. The bit crusher is a fun one. Does exactly what it says. So we'll go ahead and load a preset. It bit crushes it down to some sort of noisy little boing. And you can change the resolution and crush more bits. Okay, so the point is that you are listening to the effect as you go and adjusting accordingly. And we'll add another effect. Let's just try a fuzz wah. And I don't care, let's just choose this one. And you're like, oh, okay, that doesn't quite work. What if I change the order? So you just click and drag and you can change which one does what first. And you'll get a different account. Here's the EQ. This is something you're going to want almost on every track to just sort of adjust the overall equalization. You can either load presets or you can click and drag the various regions, and you can also change the order. It shows up in your effects chain, and you can make adjustments accordingly. It's very easy to add audio effects. You can add almost as many as you like, but I think there's probably a limit before the track will just give up on you. I've never tried that. So you go to your mix window, and there's all your tracks with more details. And I'm going to show you, this is what we call up here, these are master or channel presets. So you can basically load certain types of presets for various channels, or for your master channel, stereo out channel, which is what we call a master preset. And lots of them come with Logic, so we're just going to try a generic one. And it loads the channel with all sorts of audio effects built in, and you can turn them on or off depending. I don't know why they put these in there off, but I think it's so that you can use them if you want to. And you can delete them, you can move them around, you can turn them on and off, listen to them on, listen to them off, and see the difference. And this is something that you do at the end of your project. Okay, so there it is, it's working. You can try to adjust the compressor. If things are overloading or clipping, you can change the parameters or change the preset. Okay, let's go back to our mix window. I'm just hitting the key X, by the way. And the mix window has all the levels that we have in our track, but this is our main level. And that typically shows up in your inspector as well. So now I'm going to add a reverb track or effect, and this is like any other reverb you've used, but it's called Space Designer, and it literally allows you to create spaces, uniquely spaces if you want. But let's say you want reverb on just 2 of your channels, but you want the same reverb. The only way to do that is to, or one way to do that is to go to the Space Designer, add it to each track, copy and paste the settings, and then you have identical reverb settings for each track. Okay, well, that's inefficient, so I'm going to show you another way. Get rid of those and then do what's called create an auxiliary channel strip. And this is what we would call a bus. So I'm going to name this reverb. Then I'm going to change its input to bus 1. And that makes it available to all the tracks. Then I can put whatever audio effects I want. So I put my Space Designer up there, choose my preset, or adjust it accordingly. Okay. Then I can go to my tracks that I want reverb on and just send them or bus them to the appropriate bus and turn up the level. And then I have to also turn up my auxiliary channel strip, so I just alt click and it goes straight to 0. So I turn that level up, and now that track has reverb. And let's say I want my other track, I set it to bus 1, turn up the send, and there's reverb. And I can actually change the amount of reverb based on that send level. So then whatever you change in your reverb applies to every channel that you bus to the reverb. And that way multiple channels can have reverb. You tell how much per channel, and any adjustments you make apply to every channel with bus 1. It's a simple concept called busing. All right. Now I'm going to save my track, my project, and if you start using more sophisticated options in Logic, you may want to look at the options below so that when you take your project with you, they take things that you might have saved inside of certain instruments or certain audio effects. And you just hit save and it saves it all in the folder, and we're done.